everyone, it's Bethany. Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I am going to be working on some birthday gifts, and I thought I would just show you a few of the ideas that I'm putting together, and I think they're going to turn out really, really cute. I'm really excited myself to see how everything turns out. And for the first little project, I am going to be starting on a little piece of craft room decor. So I am going to be making all of these gifts for someone who really loves to sew. So I kind of based sewing as my theme for all of these little gifts. But you could definitely take some of these ideas and use them as inspiration and run with them in any direction that you would like. So for this first little idea, I have shared this little, I guess it's a little picture frame on my channel before. I have found these at the Dollar Tree, and every time I find them, I grab a few of them because they are so fun to decorate with. Of course, looking at it, it looks more of a wedding piece of decor because it says happily ever after in it. But what I do is I use it for the frame and the nice little wooden bead hanger, and then I just DIY it to look a little bit different for what I want to do. So I did this in I think the winter time, and I did a really fun little snowflake idea. But for this one, I thought it would be fun to just get some scrap paper and bring this to life in a different type of a way. So for this project, I'm simply going to turn this around. I'm going to lift up the little prongs holding the little happily ever after inside. I'm going to remove that. I can set this to the side for a moment, and I'm going to base all of my measurements off of this inner piece. So it looks like I have 5 inches by 5 inches, maybe a little shy of that. So what I'm going to do is I found some pieces of scrap paper that I had in my craft room, and because the person I'm doing this for loves to quilt, I thought it'd be fun to kind of make a little quilted look on this back panel, and then I'm going to add a little text with some adhesive vinyl. So I have some pieces here. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to, because I have 5 inches to work with and I have 5 pieces of paper, I'm going to cut them each 1 inch thick and then 5 inches across, if that makes sense. So let me just go ahead. Let's see here. Which way do I want to do this? I'm just grabbing my tiny paper trimmer. I'm going to measure 1 inch, and that looks just about right. Okay, there we go. So there's my first little inch, and then I can also, let me make sure that this original piece, no, I'm not quite sure that that was originally straight because this is scrap paper. So let me just cut a new piece and also take this little tap section off. Okay, let's see. If I start here, let me just cut 1 inch off here. Okay, just guaranteeing that my both sides are completely straight. Okay, here's that one piece, and I can arrange these in any way I want. I'm not going to make that completely known just yet because I'm not sure, but then again, I'm going to trim these at 5 inches. Okay, so I've got my first piece. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same dimensions for each one. Again, I'm going to just make sure that I have a nice straight edge. So I'm going to probably start by just squaring off the ends, and then I can go ahead and do my measurements. Again, just because this is scrap paper. Okay, so I have all of my pieces. I can also save any scraps that I'd like or discard anything that I feel is a little too small to use in the future. So here are my final little pieces. And now I can kind of just visually arrange these how I'd like. I like that I pulled in a variety of colors. Now, if you do have a print that is a little bit, you know, has a more differentiation, you want to just make sure that you're cutting off an area that you would like to showcase. So just be mindful of that. And I really like this. I think that this is going to kind of look a little bit quilted and just fun. So I'm just trying to kind of see where I want to go with the order here. And this is, again, a wonderful way to use up some scrap pieces of paper. I think I really like this. I think I like how that kind of breaks all of that up. I'm going to also try really quickly just moving these two pieces around and see if I like that. And I think I do. I think that looks really nice. So that is going to be my final answer. So for adhesive, what I'm going to do, you can use any adhesive of your choice. I'm just going to use this, it's called Sticky Thumb, and it's a little dot runner of adhesive. And I'm just going to place some right on the back. This is a really nice strong adhesive, and I've used it, I think, for one other project, and it worked really, really well. I just thought it would be a nice project, or a adhesive for this project. Okay, so just lining that up the best that I can. And I am going to end up placing a protective layer of acetate over this. So while the adhesive is going to be important, because we do want this to last really well, there is also going to be an additional protective layer over top that's going to kind of keep it in place. So I also am going to do that because, whoops, a little adhesive on the front there. Let's see if I can get that off. There we go. Let's see, I lost my train of thought. Okay, there we go. That looks nice. And just using this background as a base, but then building up a new look. That is a really strong adhesive. I'm really impressed with that. Okay, so then a little bit more on this one, and I will just continue building that up. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you is the reason I'm also going to do acetate is because I want to put adhesive vinyl on top, and I just thought it would look better going on another layer and a shiny layer. We'll see how it turns out, but it makes sense in my mind that it might make it look just a tad more dimensional. Even though acetate is just a nice thin layer, it might be just what it needs to look just a tad more polished. There we go. Oh, that looks good. Okay, I can see myself becoming obsessed with this paper. Ooh, this is a pretty side too. I definitely think I'll go with the floral, but that's pretty too. I think this is Cricut, this paper. And the rest, unfortunately, has just been in my little keepsakes pile of things that I have trimmed off here and there from other projects. And so I don't really have much information about all of the other pieces that I'm using. Okay, there we go. And I think I might have just a little bit of overhang here, so I can grab my scissors and just trim that down. Better yet, I will grab my Truth Control knife. I think I'll have a little bit more control doing it that way. So just trimming off and using the little base as my guide, trimming off any extra just so that it fits snug right back into that frame. There we go. Okay, I think that looks really nice. Okay, maybe just a tad more. Okay, now I'm going to trim down my acetate, and I might need to grab my bigger paper trimmer because my acetate has a dimension, I think it's 12 by 12, so I might need my bigger paper trimmer just to trim that down a little bit more nice. Okay, just bringing in a larger paper trimmer. You know, you can never have too many, or can you? I'm not sure, but I have found that a larger one obviously is nicer for larger pieces. However, that small one, I love bringing this in because it just makes really quick work. And then I have this acetate sheet, so I've used a little corner of it. I'm not sure if that video has come out yet, so if not, there's something coming with a 1 in it. Okay, so I am going to, again, this was about 5 by 5, so I'm going to trim my acetate sheet at 5 inches by 5 inches, and it's clear, so it's hard for you to see, but 1, there we go, and then I'm going to turn and square that off perfectly and trim. Okay, here we go. Now I have my piece of acetate that I can put right on top, and we can start building this little frame. Okay, so the acetate sheet does have little protective film layers on at least one side, if not 2. So let me get that. And that's just to protect it from, you know, getting all gross and grimy. Okay, so that was one side, and then the other side, then you reveal it and it's not as foggy. It's just that protective film. Okay. There we go. Ooh, there. That is beautiful. Okay, so now we have our little acetate sheet that we can put right over our little project here. Just perfectly. Ooh, that looks so pretty and polished, so you can kind of see just the shine, right? Okay, so then you can place it right back in, determining which way I want it, and just make your creative decisions as you go. You could really make this look completely different based on the pattern papers that you choose, or if you want to just use one sheet of pattern paper, you could do that as well. But let's turn that over and see. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, I love it. I think it kind of got a little wonky. I'm going to straighten it out just because we do have some definitive lines in here. So let me make sure that that's pushed down. Okay. That way it's nice and straight. That over again. Very cute. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love the colors. The colors just all came together really nicely. Okay, I'm gonna grab some transfer tape, and then I'm gonna put a cute little saying on the front that I think will be super fun and turn this into a really cute piece of craft room decor. Okay, I think I'm gonna opt for a paper transfer tape just because it's a little bit more low tack. And it might be a little bit more forgiving with that acetate. I don't believe I've ever put vinyl on acetate before, so it makes sense to just use this. It's what I'm comfortable with at least, so I'm gonna go for that. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'm going to trim as close. Now, of course, this is a white vinyl with a white background, so it's a little difficult for you to see, but I can see it just fine. And I'm just trimming as close as I can to the design. That way it's going to just help me center it visually once I get it into the base of my frame. But before that, I'm going to turn this over. Now this is a removable vinyl, but that's perfectly okay because this is a piece of decor that's meant to be inside. It's not something that's going to need to withstand harsh weather, such as something that would go outside. And it's also not something that is going to be around water, such as drinkware. So I definitely use a removable vinyl. I use permanent as well for home decor, but I'm not intimidated by the removable because it's just fine. Okay, now I'm just going to peel away that background, and you can see this cute little SVG that I chose. And I cut this out on my Cricut Explore 3. It did a perfect job. And I will be sure to link all of the things I'm using as well as these little design files down below in case you want to purchase them. Okay, so you can kind of see there, it says eat, sleep, sew, repeat. And I'm just going to center that the best that I can. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to, when I'm comfortable with where it's at, I think that looks good. Okay, so I can just kind of press that down with my fingers. Okay, and then lightly burnish using that scraper tool just to remove any bubbles and get a nice flat press down. Okay, and then peel away my transfer tape, revealing my design right on that little piece of acetate, but more importantly, right in the middle of that frame. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Okay, I'm gonna have to replicate this for my craft room too. That is so cute, and I have a lot of extra paper. Plus, I bought a bunch of these little frames. How cute! Eat, sleep, sew, repeat. And then I love the little needle and thread down there. So cute. Now the needle, you can kind of see it does get a little bit lost with that pattern paper behind it. So just be mindful of, you know, you can obviously see that it has a little bit more contrast just because of the darker color behind it. But in person, actually, I feel like it's actually translating better in person. If I dip it down like that for you, you can kind of see it a little bit better than head on, but it looks really cute. Oh my goodness, how cute. This is going to be such fun craft room decor. And so this is the first idea for a little gift that I'm doing, and let's go ahead and move on to the next idea. Well, I was going to do a little Infusible ink zipper pouch next, but I forgot to turn my heat press on, so we're going to skip that and do that in a moment. But first, let's just go ahead and make the coordinating card that's going to go with these gifts that I'm making today. So I'm going to bring out my Misti, and let me tell you, we are in for a treat today because I'm going to be doing the Wreath Builder by Gina. This has become one of my favorite things ever when it comes to card making. It is so neat. I'm addicted to it. I'm buying stamps to coordinate with it. It's just so fun. So it comes with two little templates, and one is for a 3.75, so 3 3/4 inch card, square card, and then this one is the 4x4. So I'm going to use that instead. I want to do a little bit larger of a card, and I'm going to set everything else right back in there. But really quickly, now that I have my template out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock. I'm going to grab a piece of just 80-pound cardstock, and I'm going to do my panel in that. And I really quickly have to trim that down to the 4x4. So let me grab my paper trimmer once more, and let's trim this down to 4 inches. Okay. Keeping scraps, they come in handy, especially for heat embossing and all that fun stuff. 4 inches by 4 inches. Okay, there we go. We are all set. Now that I have my little panel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it in here, and you're going to want a stamp positioner tool for this project. So I'm going to put my little Wreath Builder template right up in the corner, and I like to actually position mine with a little bit of tape. So I'm just going to grab some of my pixie tape. Again, everything I'm using will be linked down below, and I just position that so that it doesn't move while we're doing all of these fun little things. Okay, let's get everything moved to the side. Now what I will do is I'm going to place my piece of paper right inside of the little Wreath Builder. So you see there's an outline of a square. I'm just going to place it right there, and now I'll choose the stamp that I want to get started with. Now, because I am going with a sewing theme, I found the cutest, let me find a piece of paper so that we can see it really well. Found the cutest stamp set ever, and I bought the coordinating dies as well. How cute is this? I'll link this down below. So fun. It has a sewing machine, really fun sentiments, thimbles, little pieces of, or spools of thread, buttons, needles, hearts. Oh my gosh, so many cute things. So I'm going to be using this with my Wreath Builder to make a really fun circular design, and I think it's going to be super fun. So I am going to first select the pair of scissors, and I'm going to place it right up near the top, just like that. And I think that is centered how I want it. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, keeping these close by, I'm going to grab my ink, and because I will be doing some coloring with alcohol markers next, I'm going to choose the Memento Tuxedo Black ink because it plays well with alcohol markers. So let me go ahead and shut this door so that stamp clings down. Make sure my paper goes right back into my little template here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to ink up my stamp. These cute little scissors, just like this. Okay, and then I will bring this down, make sure it's in the spot, and stamp the first part of my little design. Okay, bringing this up. That looks good, actually. I don't need to restamp that. Now, if you wanted a lot of scissors, you could just do a quarter turn and then stamp another one, but I'm gonna do a full turn, just like this. I'm going to ink up my stamp once more. Fair warning, the Wreath Builder is absolutely addicting. It will have you looking at stamps in a completely new way. And I thought it'd be fun just to make a little wreath of craft supplies for this card. Again, keeping it in the little sewing theme. Turning, again, a full turn. Re-inking my stamp. Okay. Bringing that down. And pressing. And then repeating once more. These are actually really nice impressions. I'm impressed it's doing it this well on the first time. Okay. Making sure, there we go. Inking up. And closing the door to press my last part with the scissors. Okay, very good. Let me clean my stamp off. Grabbing my little stamp chamois here. Just like that. Okay. Ooh, I'm glad I have my heat press turned on because it's a little chilly today. Not gonna lie, it's a little chilly. And nothing says warming up a craft room like a heat press. Do you know what I mean? Okay, putting my little stamp back. Now I'm gonna grab the next one I want to do. The next one I want to do is this cute little spool of thread. Okay, and I'm going to position this. In fact, I'm going to do the needle and the spool of thread together. So I'm going to place that right here. And that's a thin little needle, so it's going to want to kind of tip over. Let me place this little guy first. Just going to place it where you want. And when you do your initial placement, you're basically creating your pattern. Put that, actually, I want that a little bit out. Maybe there. Okay. And I want this just like that. Okay, I think that looks nice. I also believe I want to do a heart. And maybe I'll just do 2 at a time. I don't want to do too much and then make a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and close the door to clean those little stamps up and lock those into position. And that initial one likes to bring up the paper with it, but you just reposition it down. Okay, now we are ready to go. So, put that there. I'm going to stamp. Just ink this up a little bit. My little spool of thread sometimes looks a little gunky. We'll see how it stamps today. If not, it's okay because once it's colored, it looks really good. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. Okay. Oh, looks good. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full turn once more. taking it and doing a full turn, as opposed to a quarter turn. A quarter turn would just be one little notch. This time when we're doing a full turn, we're doing 2 full notches, if that makes sense. Okay, and then I'm going to place that right there, make sure it's right in position. Ink up my stamps. Okay, looks good. And stamp them down. And you can really see a cute little wreath of sewing supplies really take shape. Okay, full turn. There we go. And lather, rinse, repeat. Just keep going. So, what I mean when I say I am shopping for stamps in a new way is that I feel like when you get stamp sets, usually we're attracted to all of the big stamps, right? And I'm not talking huge stamps, but I'm talking like when you look at this, you're automatically looking at, ooh, the sewing machine. Look at that cute thing of buttons, and the scissors are so neat. But look at all the little tiny things that could make up a fun wreath. Well, a funny wreath too, but look at all the things that could make up a really fun wreath. I feel like this wreath builder has made me appreciate all of the little coordinating and tiny stamps that accompany the sets. And I'm looking almost more at those than I am like the showcase and showstopper stamps that are in the little set. I hope that makes sense, but I love when you are inspired so much that you look at craft supplies in a new way. I feel like that's just such a refreshing part of the whole crafting journey, you know, just to be refreshed in a new way. Plus, it makes your craft supplies go a lot longer when you have purposes for each little part of them. Look at that. Very cool. Okay, let's clean up. Clean off our stamps really quickly, and I'm going to do one more. And then I think I'm going to stamp one other thing after this, and then we'll get to coloring. Okay, so bringing my little stamps back in. I like to replace mine right away because these little stamps are sticky and clingy. So if I don't put them back right away, I could see them getting lost. The last thing I want to do is this little heart. And I thought it would be really cute to just bring it out a little bit, right? So when you're thinking about a wreath, you're kind of going in different levels, correct? So you kind of have your big items, as in the scissors, then you have some longer items, which I liked with the needle. Then you kind of have a filler item with your thimble. But then I have these little hearts that are kind of going to extend the wreath a little bit and kind of bring it out more towards the edge again. Of course, you could keep going and add as many as you'd like. I'm going to stop here. This is going to be my last part, but my goodness, you could, even if you use the exact same stamps as me, but you put them in different places, your wreath would look completely different. It's almost as if no two wreaths could truly look the same, right? Okay, little heart. There we go. And now, right here, I'm going to actually tap that a little lighter. I tapped this one a little too much, and it's going to be fine. The card is not ruined, but I noted that I kind of pressed it down a little too much. And it's just a teeny tiny stamp, so it really didn't need, you know, much strength. I guess I'm a little stronger than I thought, right? Okay. There we go. And the last one. Just tap a little ink, and there we go. Ah, perfect. How cute is this? I love it. Okay, so now I'm going to place this to the side. I do like to color next, but I find that if I just wait a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and just really let that ink set, I feel like it colors a little bit better. And that's just what I'm finding. It may not be the case for you, but I just like to give the ink a little time to set before I start coloring with my markers. Okay, so I'm going to clean this off, and then I'm going to really quickly stamp my sentiment because my Misti's already out, and you know, just makes sense too. Okay, I'm gonna save this piece of tape. I'm done with my wreath builder. How neat is this? Make sure you're subscribed. We are going to probably have way too much fun, probably more fun than we should with this wreath builder. So we're gonna be doing that soon. Okay, let me grab a little scrap piece. I always keep tiny little scrap pieces of cardstock around for sentiments. Okay, so this one actually feels like 110 pound, which is just fine. And what I'm going to do is magnetize that down. I am going to do a little sentiment, and I am going to keep it simple. I'm just going to say, it's your birthday. There are so many things you could do, but I just want to say, it's your birthday. Okay, now, originally, this stamp was connected, it's your birthday, and I cut it apart because I wanted to. So I know that may be like a little nerve-wracking to modify a stamp, but if it works better for you, then your stamps, go for it. And I wanted to have 2 lines. It was going to work better. I'm going to do a little circle in the middle of my wreath, and you know, a really long one-lined sentiment was just not going to work for my creative vision, essentially. Okay, I'm just going to stack those one on top of the other and make sure they are good to go. I think that looks nice. Okay, we can always check and see, and if not, we can re-stamp, but I think that'll be just fine. And I am just going to use black ink. I'm not going to do any embossing. I'm just going to use some basic, clean black ink and keep it simple because the coloring is where it's going to get really fun. Okay, just going to be mindful not to overpress. Perfection. I love it. Okay, cleaning off, cleaning up my space, and let's start coloring. Okay, before I put this away though, I did purchase the coordinating dies for this stamp set. I'm not going to be using them in this particular card today, but whenever there's the coordinating dies, I have to purchase them. Well, I don't have to, but it seems to be the case recently, right? They just look so nice and polished, but definitely worth it. Okay, let's next clean this little cutie up. And before I start coloring, I'll do one little cut. I'm going to take these little stitched circle frames. I'm actually not going to use the stitched part you know, necessarily, but I'm going to use the circle, and I'm just going to cut that out just like that. I'm going to use this piece of tape, and I'm just going to place my die where I'd like it. I think that looks nice and centered. Place my tape there so it doesn't shift, and I'm going to really quickly just run this through my spellbinders really quickly and have that cut that out, and then it will be all ready to go. Okay, I think I'm going to name her Stella. Stella, my little spellbinder. Okay, so I'm bringing Stella in. I'm going to really quickly cut out. There we go. And just run this through so that it will cut out my little circle die. There we go. Thanks, Stella. I really love her. I really love her so much. Okay, and pop out my little circle. How cute. So simple, and you'll see how this is going to come together in just a little bit. So I'm going to set that to the side. I'm going to organize my little dies so I don't lose one. And then this is the little stitched circle aspect. Do you see those little stitch marks in there? How cute. So don't throw that away. I just really wanted just a circle, so that's why I just grabbed this die set real quick. But this is what it's really kind of known for. So I'm going to save this for another card. I won't be using it today necessarily, but I'll save that so I can reuse it. Okay, let's go ahead and get to coloring and assembling this card. Okay, so I already pulled the colors that I'm going to be using. Aren't they gorgeous? And let's bring our little panel in. I'm going to tape it down. I just like it to stay put while I am coloring. And even though I pulled all of my colors, I'm going to keep a little swatch off to the side just in case, because sometimes I forget which one I wanted in which spot. It's only natural, right? Okay, so I know for a fact that I'm going to start with, let's start with the scissors. And I believe, so I have R22 and R23. Now these are from, I bought 2 collections of these markers. One is a pastel collection, and I believe these are all from the bigger collection. However, I think this little pink is actually from the pastel collection. So I will actually just link both. I'll just link all of the markers that I own down in the description box below. I think, again, most of these are from the bigger collection, but I think I might have snagged this from the pastel collection. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I think R22 is going to be the lighter, but I just like to keep a little scrap handy. Yes, it is, just by a tiny bit. So I'm going to go with my lighter color. Now, everyone approaches coloring in a different way. I like to start with my lighter color, transition to my darker color, and then come back in with my lighter color. But go ahead and do it however you'd like. Again, I'm going to start with the R22, which is dark blush, and I'm going to do all of my little pencil handles. So I'm going to use the fine tip as I come in with that initial lighter color and get that just nice and colored in. Okay, and actually I already know I'm going to ditch this tape because I find it better to color upright, if that makes sense. So I want all of the scissors that I'm going to color to be up in this north position. So I'm probably just going to keep rotating as I color. That's just me. I don't know. I'm just more confident that way. Plus, I feel like it's going to give me consistent shading that way. Okay, bringing in the darker color to bring in a little bit of shading. And I'm going to do all of my shading with the light somewhat, or the shading coming in from the left. So I'm just going to kind of run down the left sides of each, and then coming back in with my lighter color, but transitioning with that brush tip. I'm just going to draw out and fade the darker into the light to just create a nice little blend, just like that. And then it's just going to kind of smooth itself out. Then I can take this, turn, and I can work on the next one. So it's almost like we're going to be doing a little wreath builder as we as we color as well. Okay, this little spot right there. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to go through the next few scissor handles, repeating that exact same thing. Okay, there we go. I am done with all of the little handles. The next thing I'm going to do is I will work on the tiny little blades of the scissors. And I am going to do, let's see, I think I will do, is it CG? Let me just check. Let me just test these out. I always pull and then I sometimes forget exactly what I want to do. I think that looks really nice. Okay, so I am going to do CG200, which is a cool gray. And again, that's the lighter of my 2 choices. So I'm going to go in with the lighter, bring in my darker gray, which is CG2, which is another cool gray. And I'll bring in that little fine tip go down that left side, and then again come back with my brush of my lighter and just kind of blend that out. Perfect. Okay, it just gives it just the dimension that I want. It's just faint and smooth and subtle, and then I'll just continue going around. I am finding the coloring, I have told you a million times, but I think I'm just telling you because I've surprised myself. I'm finding the coloring very relaxing. It's just where it's at for me for some reason. And I don't have coloring experience, and so sometimes that makes me a little bit nervous that I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but each and every time I'm really happy with how my project turns out. So, you know, you can't be too picky or hard on yourself if you, in the end, are proud of, you know, your project. So I'm definitely not perfect at it. I'm sure my technique, even, you know, a year or two from now, I'll probably look back and maybe giggle at myself. But for now, I like the progress I'm making. Okay. And sometimes you just have to be happy with where you're at. It's okay to be proud of yourself. Every journey has a starting point, right? Okay. And my final little blade. It's just a nice faint gray, but it's there. It's present. Okay, and I think I need to keep these because I believe I'm going to use them again on the little spools of thread. Now you could make those, you know, a wooden color, but I didn't want to bring too many colors into this, and I wanted to just kind of keep the gray going as well. So that's why I decided to do that. Okay, so now let's do the little spools of thread. I'm going to start here. I have 2 oranges pulled. I have a YR4, which is a salmon pink, and a YR, which is called quince. And again, let me just double check what I'm doing here. Okay, starting with my lighter, which is the YR4, going with my fine tip, and I'm going to just color in this nice little spool of thread. It's a really nice kind of sherbet color. I really like it. So very basic. Bringing in my darker with the fine tip. This again is YR, which is the quince. And then I'm going to again hover over that left side and then bring back the lighter color with my brush and just fade that out and blend it in. Okay, I think I like that. Okay, let's move these off to the side and let's move to yellow. So I have Y3 and Y2, sunflower and barlum yellow. And I'm pretty sure by the caps I can see which is which, but might as well just test. Okay, I was right. So I am going to just move that there. Grabbing my fine tip with my lighter color of Y3. Doing a nice basic color. And then the darker. Okay. And then of course the brush on the lighter color to just blend and smooth that out, creating that nice little transition there. Ooh, that's buttery. I like that. Okay. Now turn, ooh, look at how the orange is smoothing out. That's pretty. I like it. Okay. Let's do blue. I have turquoise blue and I have mint blue. So BG68 and BG4. Double check my order here. Okay. That one surprised me, right? Because the one on the right is actually the one I'm going to start with. It's lighter. So that's why I double check, because the caps I find very deceiving. And in my last few videos of card making, I've shown you my swatch system that I did. And that has saved my little tush quite a few times. Okay, going back with my darker and then lighter to blend it out. Ooh, that one looks really nice. Okay, turn. And my last one, now I am actually going to do just one color for blending on this because I couldn't find two purples that I really liked for this. So that's completely fine. I've actually done a lot of blending just with a single color. So I'm just going to go in really quickly, do my base. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a few, because it's the same color, I'll just kind of really predominantly put that on one side. Okay, just like that. And then switch tips to that brush to just blend it out. Okay, there we go, and that will just kind of smooth itself out. That looks really good so far. Okay, let's come back in with the grays so that we can do the finish up the little spools. So these are pretty small, so I'm just going to color with my lighter, bring back my dark, focus on the left side. You want to make sure your shading is consistent. So since I did my darker on the body and on all of my pieces, I went with the left. You just want to make that consistent so that everything flows. Okay, there we go. Finally, we're going to do this RV260. I believe this is from the pastel collection. I'm just not certain, but I'm just going to, the little hearts are so teeny tiny that there's no reason to blend. I'm just going to make that color known in those little pink hearts. So cute and so done. Okay, here we are. What do you think? Really pretty. And I'm going to have it go like this. I think that's going to be the orientation. Yeah, I want the orange on the top and kind of going in rainbow order around. I think that looks really pretty. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building this card. I'm going to bring in some glitter cardstock. I think it'll be really fun and pretty. And then we're going to get our card base all prepped. So we just need to do a little trimming, a little adhesives, and we're all set. Okay, so I thought that this would be really fun to bring in a little border and kind of frame it out. I thought it would just add a little bit of excitement, plus just kind of pull that color towards the edge. I'm going to be mounting this on a white card base, but I still wanted just to bring a little bit of fun into this. So because this is trimmed at 4x4, I'm going to go ahead and trim this next piece at 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I'll just bring this in. I believe this is Cricut glitter cardstock. I'm almost certain. I will do my best to link it down below if I can find it and if it's still available. It's really pretty. And I think it's in a little pastel collection if I'm remembering right. Now, if this does make you nervous, I will say if mounting this on here makes you nervous because you're wasting some of the cardstock in here, you can certainly, cut out the center of this so that it's not wasted. I'm personally not bothered by that. I've had this cardstock for quite a while, so it's needing to be used. So I'm okay with parting with it, or I don't know how to say it, but not saving every piece of it in this instance. So I'm going to go ahead and just let that be. But take that step if you want to just save some of that, because it's super, super pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to use some foam tape just to give a little oomph to my card. And I like having a little raised effect. It's something that is silently there, but just makes such a difference on the card, I think. Oops. Sorry for the noise. Okay. There we go. Peeling off my adhesive. Backing. And then I will just center this the best I can. I think that looks good. Okay, here we go. Okay, while I'm here, I am going to add a little bit of foam tape to the back of my little circular sentiment here, and I'm going to put that right in the middle, and we'll build up our card base and call this complete. Okay, here's this, and let's grab my little tweezers. Whoops. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so cute. Okay. Centering that the best that I can. And there you go. Ooh, it's so fun. Okay, now let's put it on the card base and really see how that framing just makes all the difference. But ooh, it's just sparkly and fun. I love it. Okay, bringing in my 110-pound cardstock, I did cut it to 4.5 by 9. And then what I'll do is I will bring my scoreboard in. I will turn it and I will score it at 4.5. Again, 4.5 by 9. Then the center is 4.5 to make a completely square card. And if you notice, I just went it up 1/4 of an inch on each of my dimensions. My original panel was 4 by 4. Then my little framing layer was 4.25 by 4.25. And then my final card will be 4.5 by 4.5. Now, that's just the creative decision I made, but you could make this any way you'd like. If you wanted to make, you know, your frame a little bit bigger, or, you know, your final card a little bit bigger, that is completely fine. Okay. I just really like that thin look to that. I think that looks really pretty, but just me. Go ahead and run with it any way you would like to. Okay, here we go. Final bit. I'm going to bring back, because I've already done some dimension here with the foam tape, you know, on the panel and the glitter, and then right here. I'm not going to add any more foam tape. I think it'll be pretty just flat against the card. So I'm going to bring back my tape runner. Love, loving this. And it's just super strong. So it's a good choice for this. And arguably, I could have waited to put my sentiment on till the very end so that it wasn't, you know, kind of bulky there, but it did just fine. Not the end of the world. Okay, I'm going to square that up. And that looks good. Pretty. Okay, by this time, our heat press is all ready to go for the next craft, but in the meantime, how pretty is this? It just coordinates so well. I love it, and I love the glitter look. It's so fun. Of course, you could take another step and stamp a sentiment on the inside. I'm going to leave mine blank and give room to write, but I think this is so pretty. I love it, and I just think the little wreath builder is going to be so fun to create, just really unique and fun ideas, and it's going to bring to life so many fun little ideas that, you know, all those little tiny stamps give them all a little bit of potential. So I love it. I think it's so pretty. Okay, let's go ahead. The heat press is on. My craft room is nice and toasty. And let's do a little infusible ink and make a little zipper pouch. This next one is going to be adorable as well. Okay, nice, clean, fresh space. Now what I'm going to do, I already cut out my infusible ink the other day, getting ready for creating these gifts. So what I did was I put them in a little bag just to keep moisture away from it, because you want to keep it very dry. Another thing I want to mention is that you also want to make sure that your hands are oil free and completely dry before you weed this or even handle it. So even when you are placing this on your mat to cut, you want to make sure that you have very dry and clean hands that are oil free. If not, you can smudge the ink and rub it off, and it just can affect the final look. Now, I will link the infusible ink I'm using down below. I've had this in my stash for a while, and I think it's so pretty. I'm so excited to use it. This is a distressed infusible ink, and it's really pretty. So it does have a little bit of color variation. Actually, I don't know that it's color variation, but it's a texture variation. So before weeding it, I am just going to kind of crack it, if you will, and I just kind of roll it and see if I can kind of just loosen the pieces. This weeding, oh, you hear that? There we go. This weeding technique is going to look very different than the technique used for weeding adhesive vinyl and for weeding heat transfer vinyl, in that you really don't want to use tools. The reason is because tools like this that we use for heat transfer vinyl and adhesive vinyl, they can actually scratch your ink. And again, just like I was mentioning with keeping your hands clean and dry so that you don't disturb the ink, you also don't want anything to disrupt your ink, such as, you know, puncturing it or scratching it. So the best rule of thumb, I think, is just using your fingers. So I just go through and punch out. I like to go through and grab the little middles of all of the little letters first, and it's super, super easy. Plus it just protects it from any rough or sharp tools. Okay, and then you just can kind of roll it as you go. If you would like a more in-depth tutorial about infusible ink, I have a lot. So I will link my playlist for infusible ink up in the corner for you. That way you can browse that playlist and see if you want to learn about making a t-shirt with infusible ink, making a bag like this, but you'll see me do it today. But if you want to go really, really slow and in depth, then go ahead and just browse that playlist. I've also made coasters with infusible ink. I'm trying to think of all the things. What else have we done? I'll have to look at that playlist myself. It's been a while. In fact, you know, I want to say it's maybe been a year since I've actually played with infusible ink. It's been a while. I think because I got really excited with sublimation too. And the thing about the sublimation, which is super cool, is that you can have all creative control with color. Whereas with infusible ink, it's super fun, right? But you're limited to the colors that are offered. So sometimes I struggle with that because, as you know, I like the softer tones. And there's just not a ton of options in infusible ink for maybe pastels or more muted tones. They do have a really pretty pink and a really pretty mint that I definitely stock up on, but other than that, they can be kind of more on the primary side. Okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to focus on all the surrounding area. So I'm going to just go through and take my time, and it's like a thick cardstock, if you will, the material, and then it has ink on the top. So you can, you know, if you want to, you can just kind of rip it. If you kind of feel like you're getting a little, you kind of want to start over. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just ripped that off just to kind of complete that pass, and I can start again. So I'm going to go ahead and just set this all the way down, and I'm just going to continue weeding this. Okay, so I am all done. Now what I'm going to do is, if you notice, now you want to make sure you clean up all of these little pieces, because if you get a little piece on your bag, it will put a little scrap mark of ink where you don't want it. Now, if you'll notice, there are some little pieces here of just the paper, and as long as you don't have ink on them, now I'm going to be really careful, of course, because I told you not to scratch your ink, but if you wanted, you could kind of go through and remove those if they made you nervous. Honestly, don't stress about it. If there isn't any ink on them, then it's not going to transfer. You just want to make sure everything that has ink on it, if you don't want it on your project, that it is gone. So sometimes if you're nervous, you can just remove it, but you should know if there's ink on there. It should be completely obvious. Sometimes the lighter colors, though, if you are hesitant, you know, it might make you a little nervous. Okay, so now I'm just going to make sure I have all those little pieces off. I'm going to take a moment and I'm just going to pause and make sure I clean those up appropriately so that I don't at the last minute ruin my project. Okay, so I'm all ready. Now I also am going to add a glitter iron-on embellishment. So, pardon me, here is the SVG. It says happiness is a full bobbin, and I thought this was so cute, because if you sew, then you know how frustrating it is to be in the middle of a project and have your bobbin run out. Ask me how I know. I've done that quite a few times as I've been learning to sew and kind of starting my own journey with sewing, and there's nothing more exciting on the flip side than getting ready for a project and seeing that you have a very nice and healthy full bobbin and you're rearing to go. So I thought that was really fun. Now this file came with a heart here. What I did is, instead of cutting it out with Infusible ink, I cut the heart out with a glitter iron-on. I thought it would just be fun to have a little pop of glitter, so I did that. Now, as a reminder, and again, I'll link that playlist for Infusible ink if you want a little bit of a slower tutorial on this, but make sure you mirror your image when you are cutting this out, and then respectively do the same for your iron-on. Okay, everything is ready to go, so let's go ahead and prep. So I have my heat press set to 400 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and place my zipper pouch on the heat press and just preheat it. So I am going to, it actually says 385, so maybe I need to turn it down a little bit. I might need to turn it down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and place my zipper pouch. Now, we are doing Infusible ink, and you want to make sure that you have a blank that is compatible with Infusible ink or sublimation. So make sure that you aren't just using any bag. You need to have something that is going to be compatible to receive the ink. So if not, then the ink will just wash off. So you want to make sure that you have the appropriate blank. I'll link the ones that I'm using down below, and they come in a variety of sizes. I think it comes in actually a variety pack, but I'm going to use this size. I think it's really nice. I thought this would be fun for like putting little sewing supplies in, so I thought this would be just a really nice little addition to a craft space. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my press, and I'm going to preheat it. That's just going to remove any moisture. This is completely ironed and nice. Actually, I didn't iron it, but it's nice and straight. So the pressing would also really help to remove any wrinkles that may be there, but in this case we're looking pretty good. So let's just go ahead and combat any moisture that may be in the fibers, and then we will get started getting the Infusible ink placed on there. Okay, so pardon my counter area. I am really working on about 7 projects all at once right now, so it's a little bit crazy in my craft space, but everything's getting done, so sorry for the clutter. So I am going to make sure that my zipper here is falling off the top lip. That's going to ensure that, number one, I don't damage my heat press by having my zipper on the heat part, but also so that I get a nice even press. So I'm going to go ahead and place that there. And I did reduce it down to 385. It's still going down from 400, so it's just cooling off a little bit. But I'm going to do this for just about 10 seconds, which is just about there. And I'm going to just give it a little bit more pressure for when I do the Infusible ink. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the table, and we'll get our ink all placed on there. Okay, so here I do have a piece of 80-pound cardstock. I'm going to open up my cosmetic bag, and I am going to place my piece of cardstock inside the bag. Now I might need to trim it down. Let me see if I can get this in here. Nope, I'm going to trim that down just so that it lays flat. What we're doing is placing a barrier between the front of the bag and the back of the bag. That way when we place our ink and press our ink into the bag, that it doesn't actually bleed onto the back of the bag. Instead, it will just remain on the front. So this is just kind of a little barrier. It's going to catch any ink that may, you know, come and try to bleed through. So we're going to place that right inside, just like that. Okay. Now the next thing I am going to do is lint roll my bag. So I'm going to grab my lint roller. Important thing here is actually make sure that you start over your lint roller. So just remove whatever's on there, even if you haven't used it, just remove it, because if there's any lint that maybe has collected on there, you don't want it transferring over to your bag. Now the reason we do this is because if you don't remove any lint, you will see blue dots appear on the bag. So you want to combat that by removing any lint from the surface. Okay, so just take your time here. Just when you think you've lint rolled enough, take a couple more swipes. Okay, perfect. Well, I hope so at least. I always say so, and then sometimes I see the blue dots, but I always try my best to combat them. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to, let's see, actually I should have I think I did my preheat out of order, but that's okay. I'm going to go, it's already preheated, so we should be good. I think I wanted to do that in a different order, but we should be okay. So now what I will do is I'm going to grab my design and I'm going to place that down onto my bag. And you can see through that. Now this is a sticky carrier sheet. Again, let's just double check that there aren't any stragglers. Okay, everything that I see that's still there, it doesn't have ink on it, so we should be fine. I'm going to center this the best that I can. Now the directions are on Cricut, their heat guide. So it tells you the exact order to do everything. I think that looks nice. And then because that's sticky, you can just lay that down. I personally like to use a heat tape, so I'm going to grab heat tape just to be sure. So if you do use an adhesive, make sure that it is heat resistant. I'll link the tape I'm using down below. You don't want your tape to melt, and you don't want it to ruin your heat press nor your project. So you do not want to use regular tape. You definitely want a heat resistant tape. I'm just going to secure it just like that. I think that's going to be really, really nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to use the butcher paper that comes with the infusible ink. Okay, so I'm going just to grab one of these and I'm going to place it right on the top. Then I'm going to take this right over to my heat press and I will press it with the butcher paper right on top. Just like we had the cardstock inside, this is going to protect our heat press from any bleeding that may occur from the ink. Because if you do get ink on your heat press, it's not a good thing. It could actually transfer over into your next project and ruin the project following the project you're doing. So you want to make sure you take every precaution and make sure that you're placing the appropriate barriers where they need to be placed. Okay, looks like this is cooled off. So I will go ahead and explain what I'm doing here. So I have my garment bag. I'm going to bring it up so that the zipper is coming off of the end. That way I get a nice even press. Inside I have my 80-pound cardstock. Then I have my infusible ink with the ink side down. Next I have my butcher paper. And then I am going to heat it at 385 for 60 seconds. Double checking. I always double check that everything is where it needs to be because I'm a nervous Nelly. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna lift this straight up. Okay, remove my butcher paper. And then I always note to see if I have any ink on my butcher paper. And if I do have ink, then I make sure to toss it and throw it away because I don't want it to transfer over to my next project. Then I can go ahead and pull this out. I'll bring it over. And actually, you know what? I'm going to do it here because I don't want to shift anything accidentally by moving it. Because if I shift anything, I'm worried it will ghost. So cute. Oh, the distressed is so neat. Oh my goodness. That is so cool. Okay, let me bring it over so that you can see up close. Okay, look how cute that is. And it's a distressed infusible ink, so it almost has almost a denim look, but it's a distressed look. Isn't that neat? And it's in a really nice kind of peachy orange. I thought that was so nice. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little glitter heart and I'm going to place it right here. I think that's, yes, that's where it's going to go. So that's really, really cute and fun. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to grab my heat press mat. And then what I'm doing is I'm just preheating my little Easy Press Mini to medium. And as you can see, it just went from orange to green, which means it is now preheated and ready to go. And I'm going to grab my heat press mat. That way we're all set to go, and I'm just going to press that on there really quickly. I'm going to get a new piece of butcher paper really quickly, and I'm just going to place that on top. That way, if any of my ink decides to bleed during this heating process, it doesn't get on my little heat press. So I'm just going to place this here. And then I'm going to do, let's see, it says 25 seconds and constant movement and light pressure. So I'll go ahead and do that. Usually I forget to count. But I like using the mini when I just want to do a really focused press. And I didn't want to disrupt the infusible ink by placing it under heat one more time. So I'm just going to do a little focus press right where I want to place that little iron on. And we will be all set. I think this is really fun. It's going to add a little fun little glitter element to it. It'll make it nice. And I think it'll be really cute. Okay, I believe that's been 25 seconds. Okay, that's nice. So it does say that this is a cool peel. I'm going to remove it from my heat press mat. That way I can cool it down quicker. If you set it on a cool surface, it will draw out the heat quicker. And if you're like me and usually crafting quickly or trying to craft quickly and get a few things done, any little extra time counts. So I'm just waiting for that to cool really nice, draw the heat out, and then I'll peel away the liner, and then there's my little heart. How cute is that? I think that's really sweet. So there we go. We did infusible ink and glitter iron-on this little pouch. It's so sweet and so easy. Again, we had that cardstock, so the back of our pouch is really good. And you know what? I don't know, maybe I might have a couple little minor blue dots, but that's okay. I had to go searching for them. They weren't initially obvious, so that's good news. All right, so this was our next little gift, and now I have one more that I'd like to get done. Okay, so the final thing I would like to make is I want to do a In the Hoop notebook cover. Now I have done this on my channel before when I was making teacher gifts, and when I was doing that, I mentioned that there are also applique versions of this mini composition notebook holder, and so I said I was going to be making a tutorial on it, and here it is. So if you want to go ahead and check out that other video, the other video has the little teacher gifts, and we did pencils. They were so cute. But for this one, again, I'm staying with that sewing theme, and I'm going to do a different design. Same designer. The designer is Designs by Little Bee, but instead of the pencil, we're going to do a little sewing theme, and I believe the snap tab is a little spool of thread. So cute. And we're also going to do the applique version, which means I did grab some additional material, and I have some fabric that I'm going to use. So right now what I'm doing is I am simply hooping my heavy tearaway. Now you can, I believe you can use a cutaway or a tearaway for this, and I am just doing my best to shop my craft space, and this is what I have on hand. I've used this before and it actually works really well, so I'm going to go ahead and just use this heavy tearaway and That will work just fine. Okay, so other materials that I'm going to use. I'm going to use my Mighty hoop. I am going to be doing the 5x7 version because my hoop is not big enough to do the entire project in one hooping. So if you had a 6x10 hoop, you could do the whole notebook in one hooping. However, because I only have the 8x8 hoop, I need to do 2 hoopings. The first hooping will be the snap tab, and then the second hooping, I'll rehoop stabilizer, and we will do the body of the notebook cover. It's really easy, really fun, and she has so many designs that honestly, you could get addicted very quickly to making these, and you could make one for just about anybody because she has so many fun themes. So what I have is I have a lot of materials that will make up my notebook cover. So I have a larger piece for the notebook cover. I have a piece of cork that I am going to do the inside of my notebook with. And then I have 2 pieces of pink that are going to go on the inside flaps. And then I have a piece, actually I think I need 2 pieces. There it is. I have 2 pieces for the snap, which I'll use first. And then of course, because we're doing applique, I do have a piece of fabric. Look at this fabric. I've had this set aside for this project for so long, so I'm really excited to finally use it. So I just found this at Hobby Lobby. It's really fun, and I'm going to use that as well. Okay, the first hooping is the snap tab, and so it's really easy. We're going to simply take this hoop over to the machine. We're going to have it do the placement stitch, which will show us exactly where we are going to start putting our vinyl. I also have found this vinyl on Amazon. It's a really smooth faux leather, and I will be sure to link it down below because it's beautiful. It's so easy to work with. I've made so many in the hoop projects with this, and it definitely is a wonderful material to work with. So we're going to be using these 2 pieces. In the directions that she provides with her files, they go through exactly how big or how small to cut each piece. Because those are already listed with her directions, I'm not going to go through all that just to save time, but I did go ahead and just trim down everything according to her directions, and I have everything prepped. Let's go ahead, take this to the machine, do the placement stitch so we know where to put our first piece, and we'll get the snap tab started and get our first hooping all done. Okay, so I have a nice dark blue thread threaded in my machine from a previous project I was working on, so I'll just keep that in there so you can really see the placement stitch, and we'll go ahead and stitch this first one out. Okay, so you can see the placement stitch for the snap tab, and the placement stitch is simply going to tell us where to place our material. So I have my material all ready. That does not look nearly big enough. I must have trimmed that wrong. Did I trim that wrong? Well, luckily I have tons of scraps for this project and leftover from other projects. So let me redo that, and we'll put this on, or we'll get this placed on the hoop. Okay, I have so many scraps of this just that I saved from other projects. So it looks like I can fit that and that. Ooh, good. I don't even need to cut down that piece. Okay, so I'm going to put this one right over, making sure I cover the entire placement stitch. Grabbing some embroidery tape. When doing in-hoop projects, embroidery tape will be your best friend. Pardon the noise. The kids are jumping around upstairs while I'm finishing up this gift. Okay. Like a little herd of elephants upstairs. Okay, so now you can see how it completely covered that area. Looks great. Okay, now we're going to return to the machine, and then you're going to just choose thread colors of your choice, but we're going to start stitching out the design of the little needle and thread. Okay, so I'm just changing out my thread color. I'm going to do a nice soft pink for the thread, and I just am choosing this color because it matches really nicely with the fabric that I'll be using for the applique. So that was just a decision that I made with the material that I'm working with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and then I'm just going to let this go, but I'm also going to be doing thread changes in between stops, and we'll just see this completely stitch out and come together. Oh my goodness, this is so cute. And it's turning out so beautiful. I think I need to make another one for myself. I feel like I need to make doubles of everything that I've made today because everything is just turning out so sweet. So I, again, chose the colors that I wanted to use based on the coordinating fabric that I'm going to be using, but go ahead and use any colors that you would like. So I went with a lighter pink, and then I went a slightly darker pink just so that I could get a little variation on the sides, plus a little bit of a darker with that thread that comes down. Did you notice how the machine stitched out this first, then we did the needle, and then it came back to do this so that it looks like the thread is going through the needle? I mean, it's little things like that that make this design just genius. So it also at the very end stitched a little circle, and this is just going to be a little placement mark for later when we do the little snap tab and when we install that. So I just used the pink just because I had already loaded. There's no use on changing your thread color because you're not going to see it in the final project, but I think it looks really cute. Now, before we return it to our machine, the next thing we need to do is turn our hoop completely over, and we need to place another piece of faux leather on the back. And again, I have this other scrap piece. It's perfect. I like to use more tape than needed when I'm doing the underside, and that is because this is going to be upside down on our machine. So I want to make sure that this doesn't move at all. So I'm just going to make sure I cover. You can really see, you know, where your design is. So you're just going to cover all of that. And then I like to tape on all four sides, going opposite of one another first to make sure it's just nice and straight and tight, and then to the left and right. And now we're going to return it to the machine. You're going to change your thread color if you'd like. This is going to just stitch the perimeter and the outline around the snap tab to actually create the tab. So if you wanted to do a fun color, you can. I personally like to use a white. I just think it's nice and clean looking, and it's not distracting or anything. Color would be fine as well, but go ahead and just make that creative decision based on the look you're going for. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change my thread color to white, stitch out the perimeter, and then we can unhoop this and be done with our first hooping. Okay, there we go. So you can see that it's stitched around the perimeter, which not only created the whole snap tab, but it connected the front and the back. So now you don't see the back of those stitches. So I'm going to grab my scissors really quickly, and I'm just going to trim down these little pieces, and then we will unhoop this and cut this out. Okay, grabbing my little scissors here. I like to use my snips for just kind of cleaning up my stitches. And that is all that's needed. Okay, perfect. And then what I'll do is I will save my tape kind of off camera. I don't think you can see it. I just kind of collect it on my Cricut over here. And I'll use that to save on materials. Okay, that's good. For the next hooping. Okay, and don't worry if you stitch over your tape. It is embroidery tape. You can also use medical tape, but it's friendly when stitching over. So don't stress if your tape goes within your embroidery field or your stitch field. It'll be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to unhoop. I'm going to set my hoop to the side for just a moment, and then we're going to work on just getting this all cut out. Okay, and this is a tearaway, and you can use a cutaway or a tearaway. It really does not matter. I like to use a tearaway because I like to tear it close to the stitch line in between. See how you can kind of open this up and then just tear it really close to the stitch line there. It does not matter if you do this part because you're just going to cut around the perimeter and you're never going to see the stabilizer, but for some reason I like to do this. Okay, there we go. Removed our stabilizer. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch. Just eyeball it, do whatever you'd like to do. It's kind of about 1/8 of an inch from that stitch line. Just do not cut your stitches here, but I'm just going to cut around, going nice and slow. And I just have, you know, a regular pair of scissors here. I find that with this embroidery, or I guess it's just faux leather, it's really easy to cut through, even double layered. So I don't really ever feel like I need anything fancier than this. Okay. and then turn. So if you missed the teacher ones, those were adorable. And those were the first in the hoop notebook covers that I did. And it kind of set the kind of tone for me wanting to make one of these for just about everybody I know, because they're really fun to make, first of all, and there's so many fun designs. You could literally sit and just pick out something that fits for everybody. Okay, there we go. I kind of trim this here. Okay, that looks great. And just go through, make sure there's no areas that you need to clean up or anything. Do that. Okay, so this is our actual snap tab, and later we will install the snap, but we're gonna wait until we have the notebook cover done as well. So now I'm gonna set this to the side, remove my scraps. You can save these for another project if you have one in mind, or you can toss. And then we're gonna re-hoop our hoop with stabilizer. Okay, grabbing the bottom of my hoop and cutting to size. Looks good. I love these snap bands so much. And let's hoop stabilizer. So you are just hooping stabilizer. That's it. And then the best thing I love in the hoop projects, the best thing about it is after you hoop the stabilizer, you're literally just building something within the hoop. It's so fun. Okay, looks great. Easy peasy, done the first time. Okay, now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna pull up the next file on my embroidery machine. Again, because I don't have I think it's a 6x10 hoop, I have to do double hooping, so I need to grab the next file that's going to do the actual notebook cover. So I will go ahead and grab that, and then I will stitch out the placement line or placement stitch that will get us started with building up the notebook cover. Okay, I should have done that in a different color, but I did not. I was using the thread that I had in the machine. But what you'll see, I'll try to put my hands under it so you can kind of see. I could even draw with a pencil what I'm referring to. Okay, so there is a placement rectangle, which is going to be the shape of our actual notebook, but also it stitched some little notches here. Okay, and these are going to help us line up the inside pieces, the inside flaps later in the tutorial. So you can kind of see that rectangle, see there? And then we have the 4 notches as well, all stitched out. So now I'm going to place my main piece of faux leather down, making sure I cover everything. And I just like to take my time and peek on all sides. Okay, grabbing my tape. And because we're going to be building up a lot on this with applique, and it's going to do a lot of stitching, I'm just going to make sure that this side is really taped down well. Okay, that way it doesn't try to pull up or pucker. Okay, so now we're all set. We can return it to the machine, and then I believe we're going to do the placement line for the fabric. Okay, so I will actually change my thread color here, not because it matters, but I'll change it to that pale pink because we'll be using that soon enough, and then hopefully you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next step. Okay, so now you can see we have our placement line for our applique. So this side will be the front of the notebook, and then this will be the back, just so you know where we're going with this. So then you're going to take your applique fabric. I trimmed mine pretty large, so you can trim it smaller if you don't want to waste fabric, but I trimmed mine pretty large just because I wanted to be given the creative control to move around and put things where I'd like them, and get kind of, because I have a lot going on with this pattern, I wanted to just kind of situate it so I got what I wanted within the stitch field. Okay, so I like that. We're getting a lot of pink scissors, which is fun, a lot of buttons. So that looks good to me. Okay, so now I'm going to just tape down my fabric. Again, just covering that placement line. Oops, I have another, actually I have another little extra there. And pulling it nice and tight just so that there's no puckering. I think we're good with just the 2 pieces. Okay, I'm going to return it to the machine. It's going to do the tack down stitch. That way it secures the fabric to our project, and then we can trim around after. Okay, so you can see that it has now done the tack down stitch, securing the fabric to our project. And now we can remove the tape that was just holding the fabric, save it for a little later. And this one I just got barely enough down here. There we go. Okay, now I will take my scissors and I'm going to trim right at that stitch line. Being careful not to trim the stitches, but getting close. We will do a satin stitch next, so it doesn't have to be a perfect, you know, cut. It's not going to be an exposed cut, but you want to get close so that you don't have any fabric peeking out of your satin stitch. I just like to turn my hoop as I go. Now you could also personalize this by putting a name or a sentiment on the front. I decided not to just because I feel like this fabric is really, really busy as is. So I decided just to leave it simple. It wasn't sure how it would look personalized because there's just a lot going on with the fabric already. Okay, then I'm going to take my lint roller because as you can see, a lot of little shavings came off. Can you see? There you go. So I just like to clean that up before I do my satin stitch. Make sure I get all the little pieces off. That way I get a really nice and clean satin stitch. So I will go ahead and now return it to my machine after I get this all cleaned up. And we will do the satin stitch next. And this will be a good time to pick up your craft room or prep another project because satin stitch will take quite a few minutes. Okay, there we go. It's all ready to go. And now return it to the machine and do the satin stitch. Okay, so now I changed my thread color to white, and what we're going to do is we're going to stitch the opening for the snap tab. Okay, so I did mine in white because I've done a few of these and I always like how crisp and nice and just polished it looks. Plus, it just doesn't draw any attention to it on the back, so I like to do it in white. Now I'm going to take my True Control knife or X-Acto knife and just cut right in the middle. And I'm just going to create an opening where I can place my snap tab. Now, this is a good reminder right now that you want to make sure you make your snap tab first. So make sure your snap tab is your first hooping because you will need it for the second hooping. So you don't want to do this first because it's going to call for this snap tab. And if you don't have it, then you're going to be a little stuck. Okay, so see how that's an opening right there? Just like that. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to take my snap tab, excuse me, and I'm going to just put it through that opening. And then when I turn it over, just want to make sure it's nice, and let me show you what it looks like here. See how it's just snug right in there? When I turn it over, you're going to see it coming out the back like this. And I believe, let me check my instructions really quickly. Okay, it says I want approximately 1/2 inch inside the slice. So I'm going to grab my ruler here and make sure that that's true. Okay, so about 1/2 inch. And then what I'm going to do here is grab my tape and I'm going to make sure I tape that down. Okay, tape that down so it does not move, because now we're going to return it to the machine and it's going to stitch this onto our cover. Okay, so I'm going to look at the front and make sure I like how that looks. Okay, looks great. I'm going to go ahead, return this to the machine, and it's going to stitch the cover, or stitch it to the cover. Still using white. I just really like how clean and polished that looks. And now I'm going just to allow that to stitch. I can even place just a little bit of tape just to kind of hold this side down as well while it stitches. Okay. Okay, so there we go. Now you can see it is stitched. Look how nice that looks, especially when you use the same color as your background. I think it just looks nice and polished. It doesn't draw any attention to it, but it just looks so nice and clean. Okay, now we're gonna look on and work on the back of the hoop. And what we're gonna do here is create the inside. So this part with the cork is optional. Normally you would just put your tabs down here, and we're going to be referencing, I did the pencil marks on the other side, but I think you can kind of see them through. In fact, I can just redraw them. They're right here, and here, and here, and here. And again, these are thread marks, but since my thread was white, I'll just put them in pencil. But normally you would just place your faux leather, lining up your faux leather with those little marks, because this is what's going to sew the little inner tabs to the inside of the cover. But I actually like the look of having my inside covered, because if not, it looks like this on the inside. It's perfectly fine. It's really not a big deal at all. But I just think it looks a little bit more polished to have this all covered up. Okay, so you can make that decision if you want to do that or not. But I think it looks nice. So I'm going to place my cork down, and I'll link everything once again down in that description box below. And then if I offer you any advice, I want to make sure you know, if you are going to perfectly trim any pieces on this entire project, make sure you really square these pieces off and make sure they're nice and straight, because it just makes for this part so much easier. Plus that your final project will have really nice, clean, and straight inside flaps. So all the other pieces you can kind of have rough edges if you want, because we're going to further trim those down with our scissors after the project's over. But I would recommend getting these nice and straight for the flaps. So I'm just going to reference, in fact, what I can do. I think I saw my friend, did Carly do this? My friend Carly Bell, she has an amazing channel. She actually, I think she did something like this, where she kind of extended that thread mark. That way it could help her line up. I think she did that. That way it could help her line up her faux leather, which is absolutely genius. Okay, I'll link her channel down below. She does amazing embroidery work. Okay, so going to make sure this is nice and secure, and I'm also going to tape right here. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side again. Just lining that up and extending those lines. Okay. And then placing these down. Okay. Oh, my heater kicked on, so sorry for the background fuzz. But it gets rather chilly down here. So it's either my heat press or my heater keeping me warm. Okay. Now, another thing I want to mention is sometimes you may have problems when your machine wants to stitch right here and right here. Let's see, if it goes this way, this should be fine, but sometimes your machine might catch on the underside right here. So what you can do is anywhere that you see, because our final stitch is going to just go around the perimeter of this rectangle, if you will, if you'd like, and I'm just gonna do it because my machine usually gets caught, and usually I just kind of sit underneath my machine and watch it and then press the stop button if I find it is a problem. But why don't I just not have a problem and do this? So what you're doing is that you're placing, and I know that's a lot of tape, but trust me, when you spent this long on a project, I'm about an hour into this project, and the last stitch ruins the project, it's really frustrating and you wish you just would have used more tape. So I'm going to just create a really nice smooth transition over those areas because it is like a little speed bump there. You know, you're having to move a little bit up there, so you don't want to create any transition problems. So that's the underside of the hoop, top side of the hoop. Now you want to choose your thread color. Before doing that though, what's going to happen again is it's going to stitch all the way around here, this whole rectangle. We don't want this snap tab to get stitched closed. So we want to take our snap tab, grab some tape, and just tape it right to the front. Keep it out of the way. Okay, choose your thread color. Again, I'm going to do white, it's just nice and clean and simple, and we're going to finish this up. Okay, so it did the perimeter. Look how nice that looks. So really looks pretty, and then of course that is what stitches the front and the back pieces all together. So now we have one whole piece and one project. So I'm just going to snip this little end piece, clean that up, and now we are ready to unhoop and untape this little project. Again, if you get tape within your stitch field, don't worry about it. It comes right out. Sometimes you need some tweezers if it kind of gets stuck within your stitches, but you just saw how I just pulled that right out. So most of the time it just comes right out, but if not, it's just fine. Okay, at this point I'm going to toss my tape. You can certainly keep it if you'd like, but let me get this all untaped. We'll get it cut out, and then we're going to bring the snap press in because we need to then install our snaps. And now turning over to remove any tape from the front, as well as that little snap tab there. I really like the color matching. I think that all turned out really pretty. And there is no puckering on this. It looks beautiful. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud. Okay, unhoop. And again, I personally like to tear my stabilizer close to that stitch line. It's just personal preference, but I just like how clean that tears. And then we are all set to cut. See how easy that was? Takes a little time, but they're so addicting because they turn out so cute. Again, I'm probably gonna have to make another one of these because it's adorable. Okay, now I'm going to cut around my stitch line, again about 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to reveal this final project. So I like to start over here, and the reason is because once I get cutting, I kind of get in my zone, and I don't want to accidentally cut my snap tab. Wouldn't that be awful? If you cut right here and cut this off, then your project's pretty ruined. So I like to start where the snap tab is. That way I can just hold it. Then I can just conquer that side, be done with it, and cut in peace the rest of the way. Again, these scissors are doing just a fine job going through the faux leather, 2 layers of faux leather plus that cork. So it does a fine job. Okay, being careful not to cut my stitches, but going about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch-ish. And doing some nice rounded corners, following the nice rounded stitch that was stitched around this rectangle. And we just about have our notebook cover. Okay, finishing up and done. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is grab our notebook so that we can start getting the snap assembled. But how cute is it so far? Isn't that sweet? I love it. Okay, bringing in lots of goodies. Got my notebook, have my snap press, I have my snaps. Okay, and now we'll finish this up. So before doing the snap press and inserting and installing those snaps, we're going to put our notebook inside of the notebook cover. So just grabbing the cover of the actual notebook, slipping them into the front and back, and then we have our notebook here. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is select our snaps. So this is where you want to decide which snaps you want to put on. And let's see, I'm kind of leaning towards this kind of robin's egg blue, because we do have a lot of pink going on and we do have a nice robin egg blue down here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. There's also a navy. There's so many colors. Oh, the navy looks nice too though. Oh, that looks really nice. I really like a pink and navy. Oh, choices. Oh, I think I'm gonna do the navy. I really like how pink and navy looks together. Ooh, decisions. Okay, I'm gonna decide on the navy. So I purchased my snap press at camsnaps.com, and I also purchased my snaps there as well. And when doing snaps for faux leather, when you're going to want to go through several layers of faux leather, you want to get the, I think it's the size 20 extra long snaps, because those will go through no problem. So I'm just grabbing my male and female ends. So I have here two of the same, so these are just the pokey ends, and those match. Those are the same pieces. Then I have a male and a female, or female and I can't remember which is which, but all that matters is that they're opposite of one another. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to reference that little circle mark that we made initially during our first hooping. And I'm going to grab my snap press, make sure it's flat on my table here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my punch adapter. I have the little punch that will cut holes in material. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to install the bottom piece and then also unscrew this top piece. Installed right now is the snap adapter where it presses the snap together, but then I just am going to take this out really quick and whoops, install this piece. Now you could just use an awl or a pokey tool just to, because all this is doing is creating a hole in our project so that we can fit the snap in nice. So whatever you have, I find that if I unscrew it a little bit and don't screw it all the way, I get a better punch. Okay, so now I'm just going to line up my hole and I'm going to get a nice hole punched out. Bring the lever down, press, and you can hear it. I'm not sure you can hear it, but I can hear it when it has punched the hole. So there it is. Okay. Got it out, but there we go. Okay, so now we have a hole right in there. So we're going to, with our notebook still inside, we want to make sure our notebook is inside for this part. We're going to take one of our little ends with the poke, put it in here, and we're just going to position where we want our snap closure to go. So once you have it there, you're going to press, okay? And press pretty hard so that you can, hopefully I can see on the inside too. I think I can feel it. I'm gonna try it one more time. It's a little trickier with the applique because fabric is covering it. Usually I just have faux leather and you can see the indent. So press. Okay. All right. I feel like I can feel that. Okay, I'll take this little part out, and then what I can do is I can see it, but you probably can't. I can see the little indent. And what I'll do is I will go ahead and make sure I don't have, you know, it punching through here. My indent is actually pretty far in, so it's going to go through right here, so we're just good. So I'm going to line this up where it goes, and I'm going to punch a hole here too. Okay. Just like that. It went through the fabric and the leather, and now I have a teeny tiny, kind of is right on this button, little hole there. Okay, now I can uninstall the punch. Not sure of its technical name, but that's what I call it. And then I'm going to place the other adapter piece in that's going to press our snaps together. So I'll put that back in, and then we'll get everything installed. So again, the notebook's out at this point. Let's go ahead and do this part. So I'm going to take my pokey side, okay, put it through the front. Then I'm going to take one end. It doesn't matter which one, as long as they're opposite of one another so that they snap into each other, you're fine. I'm going to place that right over, and then with the smooth side down, or the snap side down, I'm going to just align this in my press, and then I will press down, pressing and closing that snap. Okay, so now that snap has been installed, we have a front and back all installed together. Then with this one, I'm going to take the smooth side and I'm going to go through the back. There we go. So we put that one right there. See it right there? And we have the pokey coming out the front. Place my opposite end, whoops, right on top. Okay, then install it in my press. Smooth side down and press down. Okay, and now we have our other snap. Move this out of the way. We have this snap installed here as well. Look how clean that looks. I love the navy. I really do. Okay, so we are all finished. We have the front, or the back, and then the front. Looks so polished. And then I forgot to really appreciate and show you, doesn't the inside look so nice? You don't see any of the thread, and it just looks really, really sleek and nice. So I like how that looks. Go ahead and take that step if you like that as well, but also know you can skip that too, because once you have your notebook installed, you're not going to see it anyway, but it's little things like that that matter to me, so that's why I take that step. Okay, so now I'm going to close my notebook and snap, and there we go. How cute is that? I love it. And the applique was so easy, and it's fun because you could really make this look so different based on your applique fabric and then the thread colors that you use for the thread. I think it's really fun. It just looks nice. And then I really have to point this out. I think I pointed out in my last video as well. The designing on the back is just, it's so nice and simple. It doesn't draw any attention to it. So even though I had to double hoop this and stitch the tab to the notebook, it looks so pretty. So it's so nice. I love that. All right, so that was my last little gift. I think it turned out really nice. Okay, so this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I just love how everything turned out, and I feel like this is going to be a really fun birthday gift. Again, I went with the sewing theme, so I think it just, everything turned out exactly how I was hoping. Some even turned out even better. I really love the notebook holder. I think it was so fun and easy to do. If you're just beginning with in the hoop projects with embroidery, even though a notebook holder seems kind of intimidating, it's really not. This is pretty simple. It just takes a little bit of time, but it comes in, or it turns out super polished in the end, and I love that. I also really love this card. Again, I am obsessed with that Gina K wreath builder. I think it is delightful, and I really think the coloring is really fun on this. I think that it's just really sweet and unique, and I feel like the little wreath of craft supplies is just darling. So with that addition of the little framed border of the glitter, I think this just turned out really, really sweet. I'm definitely going to recreate this for my own craft space. I love the way it looks. Again, you could put any SVG in here, use any strips of scrap paper that you have, and honestly, I think I even used a scrap piece of vinyl for this as well. So this is a really good scrap challenge that you could do. Grab all those scraps and create something really awesome. And I really like this on the acetate. I think that just really gives it a polished look. And then finally, the Infusible ink little zipper pouch turned out so cute. I love the addition of the glitter iron-on. I think it just made for a little fun embellishment on there, and I just really like it. Now, if you remember earlier when I was doing videos earlier in the season, I did make this heartfelt pocket. Actually, I don't know if that I did this one on camera, but I showed you on camera. I made this heartfelt pocket by Kimberbell. Oops, that got a little dark, but it's really fun and cute. I love how this turned out. I do have a tutorial on how to do this as well, so be sure to check that out if you love this too, but I will be adding this to the cute little array of gifts for gift giving. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. As always, thanks so much for hanging out with me as I craft. I hope this inspired you in some way, and I will see you all in the next video.